welcome back. Are you ready for another day of fun? Awesome. Today's Bible point is God is always with you. Wow, God! I wonder how our friend Ian's doing today. He's having a little bit of trouble with one of his inventions, but he's such an upbeat and positive guy, I'm sure he'll be fine. Maybe not.
Hey.
Ian, what's wrong?
Well, after we talked yesterday, I went home and I started working on my design for the greatest invention ever. The one I was going to give to my mom.
That's great. So you have a plan. What's wrong?
Well, after I finished my design, I came to the factory to ask the other workers if they could help me. But after they saw a photo of my design, none of them wanted to help.
Oh, Ian, I'm sorry. That's not very nice of them.
The worst part is they hogged up all the supplies too. So I had to go to the supply closet and I found this.
Do you even know what that is?
Oh, yeah, it's a floppy clarinet with a mustache.
That I think is a piece of a vacuum cleaner. Are you sure you were in the supply closet or the janitor's closet?
Well, if it was the janitor's closet, that explains all the mops. But watch, I can still make beautiful musical noise from this thing.
Okay. Ian, stop. Stop, please. It's okay.
Okay, so maybe you're right, but I still don't have anyone to work on the design with.
Well, that's all right. Today's Bible point is God is always with you. Wow, God!
What's that supposed to mean?
It means when you don't have a friend in the world and you think you're all alone, God will be there with you.
Well, I guess that's kind of cool.
Yeah, imagine. The God that created the entire universe is there just for you.
That's really cool.
And you know what, Ian? I'll be with you too.
Really?
Sure.
You would do that for me?
Absolutely. Soon as I'm done with these kids here, I'll help you with your invention.
All right. I'll go check the closet for more supplies.
Not the janitor's closet. Have a great day today, kids. We'll see you back here. And remember, God is always with you. Wow, God.
No one else could heal all Welcome back to the lab, where we explore God's Word and see how it applies to our lives. Today, our Bible point is, God is always with you. And I'm going to start with giving a little bit of background to our story. So, you might know the story of Jericho, where there were the Israelites who were marching around the wall, and God made the walls of the city fall down. And the reason why is because the Israelite people were going to be taking over the city, and they were actually going to be taking over a whole big plot of land that God had as the promised land for the Israelites. So the Israelites took over the promised land, but there were many people living in that area who worshiped idols and fake gods. So the problem is once the Israelites moved into this new land, some of the Israelites, God's people, started worshiping these fake gods, these idols. And obviously, God doesn't want that because He's the only one who deserves our praise and worship. He's the only one true God. So there was a group of people called the Midianites. And the Midianites were a bunch of really scary warriors. They could conquer lands, and they did a lot, in fact. So the Midianites started stealing all of the crops, so the food that the Israelites grew, and they brought in their animals onto where the Israelites lived to eat up all of the grass. So if the grass is all eaten up by the Midianites' animals, then there's not any left for the animals of the Israelites. If the Israelites were able to grow a little bit of grain, because remember I told you the Midianites were coming in and stealing all the food. So if the Israelites were able to grow a little bit of food before the Midianites could steal it, they would hide it away so that the Midianites couldn't steal it. And this is where we meet up with today's Bible character, Gideon. We find Gideon threshing wheat at the bottom of a wine press, hiding his little bit of grain from the Midianites. So here are a few stalks of wheat. And what you can see is wheat grows like a really tall plant and has this really long stem. And then here is where you get the actual part that you use to make flour or to make bread. But the problem is that there's a lot of stuff around it that you need to break off before you get the small pieces that you can grind up to use as flour. So what threshing did is basically you would take the wheat and you would hit the wheat a lot so that it would break all the different pieces apart. And normally how this would happen is you would do it outside on a windy day because all the little pieces that you want to get rid of are actually pretty light and like float in the wind pretty well. And so if you're hitting it and then those parts separate from each other, all the bits of the wheat that you don't need will be blown away in the wind, and all the parts that you do need will stay right there. So you can gather it up later and then use it to make flour and use it to make bread. But here's the problem. If the Midianites, these super strong warriors who are coming around and steal all of your grain, if they see you just out and about, hitting your grain to try to get all those little pieces to go away so you have enough to make your food, they're just going to come right on over with their strong warriors and steal it from you. Gideon was scared. That's why he was in the bottom of a wine press. And here's the thing. If you're down inside of a wine press, it's just kind of like a big open well without water almost. If you're down in the bottom of it, you're not going to get a whole lot of wind. So threshing wheat is really hard. So here's Gideon down at the bottom of a wine press, and while he's threshing this wheat, an angel of the Lord appears to him and says, "Mighty hero, the Lord God is with you." Who, me? Gideon probably said. A mighty hero? Hiding in a wine press? Gideon said to the angel, look, I'm down in here because I'm scared. Do you see what the Midianites have done to us? We're starving. We don't have enough food. If the Lord is with us, why has all of this happened to us? Where are the miracles that our ancestors told us about? The Lord has abandoned us, and he's handed us over to the Midianites. Just look at where I am right now. Today we're learning that God is always with you. But Gideon was confused. He certainly didn't feel like a mighty hero. And he certainly didn't feel like God was with him. He wondered why God wasn't helping in this situation. Can you think of a time when you've felt a little bit like Gideon? You've felt kind of helpless, like you can't really do anything to change what's going on, and you've felt alone and maybe a bit abandoned? I'm pretty sure we've all felt like Gideon at some point, alone and abandoned. Gideon may have felt abandoned by God, but that's all it was, a feeling. It wasn't a fact. Remember on day 1, we talked about surrendering our thoughts to God, taking captive everything that's inside of our mind and having it obey Christ. Sometimes we have lies in our head. Sometimes we have lies inside of our heart that don't match up with God's truth for us. And God's truth for us is that he is always with us. He is always with you. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that. But we know that it is true. God was still right there with Gideon. God's angel said to Gideon, "Go with the strength that you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. God is sending you." I bet Gideon was thinking, "What? Me?" So he said, "Lord, how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest, and I am the least in my entire family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you." And that's what we're learning today, that God is always with you. That night, God told Gideon a plan. God said, "I want you to go out and destroy the idols that were near Gideon's father's house, and then build an altar to God." An altar was like a little monument for God, sometimes made out of stone or wood. So I'm going to pretend right now that I'm Gideon, and I'm going to stomp out some of these idols. So here I got plastic cups. And this is what we would be doing for real if we were all together in Kids Week, is we would have plastic cups and we'd run around stomping them out. It's pretty fun. So, got them all lined up on the ground. You ready? Stomp them really good and really hard. So this might have been kind of scary for Gideon, because he was having to do this in front of his father's house. Who did these idols belong to? Maybe it belonged to someone in his family or his friends. All right, here they are, all squished. The next morning, when people saw what had happened to the idols, they suspected Gideon. They went to his father and said, "Bring out your son. We're going to kill him for destroying the altar of Baal." Baal was one of the fake gods. But Gideon's father actually stood up for him, which is really cool. Gideon's father said, "Let Baal defend himself," which means, let's just let Baal take care of this, assuming Baal's real. And when the people saw that Baal didn't do anything, they realized he was fake, and they turned back to the one true God. Well, it was time for battle with the Midianites. So Gideon called all the men together. Gideon looked around at his army, and it was kind of a sorry sight. There weren't all that many men, and the Midianite army was huge. Then God did a weird thing. He told Gideon, "Yeah, actually, you have too many warriors." Wait, I thought we just said that the Midianite army was huge. Here's what God said. "If you fight and win, you will boast that it was because of your own strength." So God actually wanted the Israelite army to be small and to be weak, because then if they won the fight against the Midianites, they would know it was because God had helped them, and it wasn't because of their own strength or their own power or their own number of people in the army. God said, "So send home anyone who's afraid to fight." Gideon told the men that anyone who was afraid could leave. And 22,000 men went home. That's a lot of people. So, just 10,000 men were left. And guess what God said? It's still too many. So he told Gideon, "Take them down to the stream. We're going to see which ones I want you to keep and which ones I want you to send home." Let's see how God did that. When the men went to the stream, some of them bent down and used their hands to cup water and bring it up to their face and drink it. And other men bent down and just put their mouth to the stream and sucked it up, kind of like if you were drinking from a water fountain. So hands and just with the mouth. So I want you to think, which one would you do? I think that it would probably be a really long way for me to bend all the way, be on my knees and bend all the way over to drink with my mouth. So I feel like I would probably use my hands without knowing anything about which one means what. God told Gideon to keep the ones who drank from their hands and to send the others home. There were only 300 men who drank from their hands. Remember, we had just said that there was an army of 10,000 left over after the 22,000 went home. So we went from 22,000 down to 10,000, now down to only 300 people. That's a pretty small army when you think about the thousands and the thousands of people that were in the Midianite army. The rest of the story happens at night. That night, God said to Gideon, "Get up and go down to the Midianite camp, for I have given you victory over them." Gideon gave each man in his army a ram's horn. This next part I'm going to read from my Bible here. So if you would like to follow along with me, you can turn to Judges, which is in the Old Testament. So you can see kind of near the beginning of the Bible. And I'm looking at chapter 7, and I'll start around verse 8. Good? So it'll overlap a little bit. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. So basically the people who were left over got to take over the things from everyone else who had left. Now the camp of Midian lay below him in a valley. During that night, the Lord said to Gideon, "Get up and go down against the camp, because I'm going to give it into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp and listen to what they are saying. Afterwards, you will be encouraged." So Gideon, being still a little afraid, said, "Okay, I'm going to see what God's talking about. I could use some encouragement right now." He snuck down into the Midianite camp. And just as he arrived, there was a man telling his friend about a dream he had had. "I had a dream," he was saying. "A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed." Okay, now if I was Gideon, I probably would have rolled over laughing. I mean, who has a dream about a giant loaf of bread rolling down into their army campsite? So his friend listened to the dream and then responded, "This can be none other than the sword of Gideon, the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands." Okay, so I probably still would have been laughing about the bread, but imagine from Gideon's perspective. He was scared, right? And he's been going through this really tough time in his life where everything's going wrong and he doesn't think God is with him. But then he hears that friend saying it can mean nothing other than the sword of Gideon, the Israelite, that God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into Gideon's hands. I bet Gideon really did feel encouraged. So, it was time for them to go into the Midianite camp. Gideon gave each man in his army a ram's horn. Gideon also gave each man a torch. Now, if you were going into battle, imagine you had all these different weapons to pick from. You had really long swords, or maybe a bow and arrow. Would you walk over to a trumpet and pick that up? Like, yeah, this is a really good thing to fight with. Or a torch? Because especially if you're going at nighttime to attack a camp, you're going to want to stay kind of quiet and in the dark, right? Like if you have a big torch, that's going to let people know that you're there. Let's see where this is going. Gideon had his men surround the enemy camp. Gideon said, "When you hear me blow the ram's horn, blow your horn and hold up your torch. Then yell, 'A sword for the Lord and a sword for Gideon.'" So that's what Gideon did. He blew the horn, and everyone blew their horns and held up their torches and yelled. And the Midianites, they started rushing around in a panic, trying to escape. God caused them to fight against each other. And they ran away. They escaped. They were so afraid that they didn't stick around. They just completely ran away. It was a victory, and the Israelites didn't even have to fight. Wow. What a story. Gideon won the battle because God was with him all the way. God is with you too, always. Gideon didn't think he was up to the challenge of defeating the Midianites, but God was with him and made it possible. Is there a challenge right now that you're facing where you need God's help. Or maybe you're feeling kind of alone and you feel like God is not with you. So I want you guys to think about those things. And the past few days, we've been talking about the word surrender, or to give something up, to let go of our control over something, taking our thoughts captive and giving them to God, asking God to take the lies out of our head, out of our hearts, and replace it with His truth. So we're going to spend a little bit of time in prayer now, just like we've done the past couple of days. And I want you to spend this time, again, surrendering your thoughts in your mind and the feelings in your heart to God. And all that means is saying, God, I'm going to give you all these things inside of me that say, you can't trust God. You can't believe in Him. He's not with you. He's abandoned you. But God, I know that those are lies. I know that it's not your truth. And God, I want your truth. God, I want your love to fill my entire self. I want to be able to trust you with all that I am. God, please help me to do that, and please help me to believe that you are always with me, no matter what. Even if I'm going through something really tough, even if I'm by myself and I feel really alone, God, I want to trust you. So we'll spend our time now just doing a little bit of that. And remember, talking to God is just like talking to a friend. You don't need to use any special words. You don't need to act a certain way or do anything special. It's just like talking to a friend. So I want you to share those things with God, any of those thoughts or feelings you're struggling with. And after I've left some space for us to do that, I'll say a closing word of prayer. God, we thank you for being a part of our lives. God, we thank you that you are not just there in the good times, or you're not just there in the big moments, but God, you are there in the bad times too, and you're there in even the really small moments. Things that seem just kind of normal and ordinary for us, as you are there with us and you're walking with us every step of the way. God, we know that you are always with us. But sometimes the circumstances that we're in, things that we see, as we start to doubt that, and we start to feel alone or even abandoned by you, just like Gideon had felt abandoned. He was in the wine press all by himself, trying to thresh his wheat without any wind to help him. And he felt like you, God, had abandoned all of the Israelites. But God, you hadn't, and you were with them. You were with Gideon just like you are with us, even when things are hard, even when things are tough, and when things are good. You are always with us, God. Thank you so much for never leaving us. God, we surrender these thoughts to you, these lies inside of our mind and these lies inside of our heart that tell us that you've left us. Because it's not true, because God, you are always with us. So God, please take those lies inside of our heart and inside of our mind and please replace it with your truth, that you are always there. You are always with us. We can talk to you anytime. God, thank you for loving us. Thank you for being with us. God, please just bless us throughout this day and help us to remember that you're always with us. Amen. Thanks for joining me again in the lab. And remember, God is always with you.
Feel it in the air right now. It's all around, I see it everywhere. It's the power, yeah, God's power. It's the power to move any star. It's the power to heal your broken heart. It's the power, yeah, God's power. So don't hold back, no, don't hold still. God is here and he is real. Take 4 steps to the left, to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn it around and move to the right. 1, 2, 3. Now take tiny little jumps forward to the front. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 jumps back, but you better look back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now freeze. And everybody clap your hands. Now stop. I feel it in the air right now. It's all around, I see it everywhere. It's the power, yeah, God's power. It's the power to move any star. It's the power to heal your broken heart. It's the power, yeah, God's power. So don't hold back. Everybody clap your hands. Now stop.
Welcome to day 3 of our creative project. So you have all of your base items painted with their first coat of paint. They're looking really great and colorful. And now we're going to be adding some Bible verses to them. You'll notice I don't have on my safety goggles today because we're just going to be using a couple of markers, some Sharpie paint pens, so we're good. But I still have my hair tied back because the last thing that you want is to be bending over if you have long hair and for it to get in some of the paint and to mess up some of the letters that you have. So I have everything stacked here in order. Nothing's actually attached yet. But the reason why I'm doing this is so you can get a feel for where you might want to write your verses on here. So for me, I think I might be writing a Bible verse up on top here somewhere. Or maybe I'll write a verse along the side, maybe down here, one of these. You have some room on the side of your gear that you could write something right there. If you wanted to, you could even, when this spins around, there's some space here where you could write. So I'm just going to keep these top 3 pieces for now. And my other pieces I will set aside. And I'm going to be writing some things on here. So what you can do is you can write some of your favorite Bible verses. You can maybe take a passage or a verse that I have shared with you during the lessons this week. If you want to wait until a future lesson and see what other Bible verses I'm going to share, you can do that. You can also write some of the Bible points for the week. So for example, God made me. God is for me. God is always with me. God will always love me. And God has a plan for me. Or you can say, I am built for a purpose. So I think that maybe what I'm going to do is on here, I'm going to write built for a purpose. I think on here, I'm going to take what was said in day 1 and write wonderfully made on here. And then around here, I actually want to write a certain Bible verse that I have written on this piece of paper. It is Psalm 34:8. So if you want to pause this and go grab your Bible and see what it is before I look it up, you can do that. So let's open to Psalm, see, chapter 34. Verse 8. So the first half of this verse is kind of why I picked it, because I think it's kind of funny and it works well with this project. So here is Psalm 34, verse 8. "O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the one who takes refuge in him." So I just thought it would be kind of funny to have "Oh, taste and see" when you're talking about our candy dispenser. So you have a white paint pen and a black Sharpie inside of your kit. I'm going to read the instructions on the back of this box so that I know exactly how to get the ink going in here. When you get it, it's going to come with probably a bit of plastic around it. You'll just have to take that off. And then it says, shake several times. Oh, yeah, I can hear it in there. I can hear something shaking around. Shake several times. All right, while I'm shaking, I'm going to remind you guys, make sure you have something under your workspace. And make sure you are not painting on top of anything that you don't want to get paint on. All right, the next instruction says to press the tip down for a while. So I'm going to move my gear out of the way, going to press down. And I think what it's doing here is it's allowing the tip to fill up with paint. So press the tip. Oh, that's it. Okay. And then just recap the pen tightly after use. Easy enough. Oh, yep. I'm starting to get some paint here. Ooh, perfect. This is going to be great. Okay. So on here, I'm going to write wonderfully made. All right, so now's a point when it's going to be really tricky, because if you were to turn this all the way around and write made on there and rest your hand down on it, this ink or the paint, I guess, is going to smear everywhere. So just make sure you're being really careful when you do this, not to smear any paint. Of course, my handwriting is going to be really messy now. So if what you want to do is you can let it dry and then do the next one, then it might look a little bit neater than that. All right, and here I'm going to write built for a purpose. And remember, the fat part of the gear is going to be facing down, so you probably won't see anything that's on there. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see it, but as I'm writing, if the paint comes across any scratchy areas, it kind of starts like flinging a little bit of white paint dots around. So if you don't want that to happen, just make sure you're writing nice and slow. And then for this guy, I don't know if the white is going to show up very well. Let me just test it inside of here. Okay, well, it kind of does, but I think I would prefer to use the Sharpie on here. So on here, I'm going to be writing, taste and see that the Lord is good. And I think, let's see, when I set the thing down on top of here, it's going to block kind of a bit of the area there. So I think I might actually write it on this side, so when you're facing front, you can see it. So let me open back up to Psalm 34, verse 8. And then I can write it down from inside of here. Okay. And actually, let's see if it fits on here. It's kind of tough to hold all at once. Because it can't be too small, because then you can't see it. Taste. And see. And then I'm going to do something interesting here. I'm just going to write the Lord is. So let me center Lord as much as I can. And this Sharpie is a little bit thin. You might want to use a little bit of a thicker Sharpie to write the words, but maybe not. Maybe you like it like this. All right, taste and see that the Lord is, and I'm going to grab my next piece of wood. That's going to be right under it, and then I'm just going to write good on this one. Ooh, and maybe I could do the white. I could do the white on it. I could do the black on it. Let's see how the black looks. Is the black okay on here? Yeah, I think I would probably write this on here, and then I might trace over it later with a thicker Sharpie. All right, awesome. Taste and see that the Lord is good. And then you can write the reference on here, Psalm 34:8. Actually, let me just do that right now. I'm going to put this guy down. This is going to be tough. I'm going to try to write it really small. It's kind of hard writing with these guys standing up sideways because you have nothing to rest your hand on. Ooh. Okay. So now together, you can see that it says, taste and see that the Lord is good. And let's stack it all up and see what it looks like. So I have this guy. This is going to be here. Now I'm not going to be able to see this from my angle, but if I were moving in front, I'd be able to see that. And then I have my gear that says wonderfully made on the outside. That's pretty awesome. And it's gonna, oh, here's one thing though that I didn't think about that now you guys will know because of my mistake. So you will see that I lined up this gear right with that hole there. Lined it up right there, and then it looks all great, right? But then I stacked this on top of here, and this is the thing I didn't think about, is that there are some parts of this gear that you never see because it's always hid inside of here. So you can just barely see that it says the purpose there. And I can't really rotate it very well because it's not on its little axis. But as you can see, a little bit of this actually gets covered up and you won't be able to see it. So that's a great thing that you can test out and you can learn from my mistake. So if you put everything on here and then you can see, you might actually need to write closer to the edge here just to make sure you can actually see it. Who would have thunk? All right, and it says taste and see the Lord's good. Awesome, you can see that. That looks great. When we put this on the side, you will be able to see the wonderfully made part that will spin around. Awesome. What you can do is you can take your jar and put it upside down on here just to see about how much it covers so you know how much space you have to work with on the top. You have all the sides you can work with. If you want to use your paint markers to add some little pictures, other kind of decorations, swirls, stripes, polka dots, stars, I don't know, you can do whatever you want to do to decorate this. All right, well, we are done with today's part of the project. You'll have to make sure that all the different items that you were painting with your paint markers dry. And then day 5, we will come back together for the final assembly. See you then.
Meet Austin, Josh, and Alex.
We had to do this community service project.
So each student in my class had to come up with their own project, design it, build it, and implement it.
We were thinking about what we would do, and we wanted to do something as a group.
The boys decided they wanted to do a project that would help kids make new friends.
It's kind of a bad feeling to be alone on the playground.
If someone doesn't have a friend to play with, they might feel lonely.
That's when they came up with the idea for Buddy Bench. They got a local hardware store to donate the bench.
We take it out every morning whenever somebody sits on it, then we go and play with them.
When I see someone sitting at the bench alone, I run over to ask if they want to play the game I'm playing. But if they don't, then I'll ask what they want to play and I'll play with them.
My teachers have said, this is a really great idea. I'm glad you're doing this.
Teachers have said that they like the idea and also that it inspires a lot of people.
Buddy Bench was so popular at their school, they decided to donate another one.
They also went to another school in our community and they made a bench for them and took it there and presented it to that school so they could carry on the legacy somewhere else too.
It's just a cool feeling to see that kids are actually having fun and not just sitting there.
The Buddy Bench is really helping on the playground. Sometimes 4 to 5 kids every day use it to meet new friends.
There's a girl named Samantha, and we decided to ask her. She wanted to play football, so we played football with her.
I hope that sometime no one will have to use the bench, so they'll all have friends to play with.
In the Bible, Book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, it says, "The Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Remember, in good times and bad, and especially when you need a friend, God is always with you.
Through every storm of life, I know you're by my side. So I am holding on to your promises. You are the God who holds my future, all my dreams. So I am holding on. You'll never let go of me. You gave me hope when hope was all but gone. A second chance to sing a brand new song. You opened up my eyes to see. You rescued me, rescued me. You showed the way when there was no way out. Cleared up my mind when you erased all doubt. You made me strong when I was weak. You rescued me, rescued me. Through every storm of life, I know you're by my side. So I am holding on to your promises. You are the God who holds my future, all my dreams. So I am holding on. You'll never let go of me. I'm holding on to you. You are my God. I know you'll see me through. Hey! You are my God. I'm holding on to you. You are my God. I know you'll see me through. Hey! You are my God. I'm holding on to you. You are my God. You are my God. I know you'll see me through. Hey! You are my God. I'm holding on to you. Hey! You are my God. I know you'll see me through. Hey! Through every storm of life, I know you're by my side. So I am holding on to your promises. You are the God who holds my future, all my dreams. So I am holding on. You'll never let go of me. I know you're by my side. So I am holding on to your promises. My future, all my dreams. So I am holding on. You'll never let go of me. I'm holding on to you. You are my God. I know you'll see me through. Hey! You are my God. I'm holding on to you. You are my God. I know you'll see me through. Hey!
Hi kids! I hope you had a great third day here at Maker Fun Factory. Remember, God is always with you. Wow, God! Remember that as you go through your day today, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.